Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Miracle Boyd, youth member of Good Kids Mad City, and I will be emceeing who we have in order for speaking today. So I will just go ahead and begin. Good morning, everyone. Again, Friday's protest for support of Adam Toledo and others injured by police violence turned up thousands of supporters joining us demanding justice for Adam Toledo and others injured by police violence. Good Kids Mad City showed up in response to abolishing and defunding the police, not reforming the police. Instead, Chicago mayors Lori Lightfoot added insult to injury with the mayor's announcement that the Governor Pritzker has allowed National Guard to be deployed in the city of Chicago in advance to Derek Chauvin's verdict. On Friday, we witnessed the powerful protest of peaceful, innocent protesters, thousands of people from across our city, together in a peaceful demonstration against the killing of Adam Toledo at the hands of Chicago Police Department. For hours, we made our way through the streets of Logan Square. Late in the night, with police, riot gear, showed up aggressive, hungry to use brutal force that comes so easy to them. Just as she's done repeatedly, Mayor Lori Lightfoot showed us all that she commands a military operation with no regard for the pain of our communities and the actual solutions that heal and have the power to tear down institutions of white supremacy. We find support from community leaders, while the mayor of our city ignores and enables the brutality happening under her watch. I now like to introduce Onate Irma to speak. I'll allow Irma to speak.
Thank you. This injustice arresting the youths in a peaceful march show us once again the brutality and the violence against our communities by the police officers. So it's something they thought that they are doing good, but good for us. Because like I say, it show once again how they use their power against us. And I said again that I said I'm very proud of the youths. The different organizations came together to move the heart of a lot of people from different nationalities to show that we have the strength and it's time to go ahead. Don't stop. Don't give up.
Are you done, Irma?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Sheila Betty.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheila Betty. I am a clinical law professor at the Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. I am also an attorney for Black Lives Matter Chicago and Good Kids Mad City. During the uprisings last summer, during the summer of 2020, people took to the streets to protest police racism, corruption, violence. And we all know that CPD officers responded with racism, corruption, and violence. And last Friday, during the peaceful protests that occurred, we saw clear indications that CPD plans to respond to protests that will arise out of the tragic death of Adam Toledo and the George Floyd verdict with the same violence and racism. And it just simply cannot be allowed to do so. As a result of the events of last summer, the Office of the Inspector General of the City of Chicago conducted an in-depth investigation on CPD's reactions last summer and the way it treated protesters and folks who took to the streets. Now, I'm going to quote from the OIG report now. It's important to remember that the Office of the Inspector General is an investigative unit with the City of Chicago. It's charged with holding accountable and investigating city entities. This is not some activist group. But here's what the OIG found about the City of Chicago's operations last summer: that there were breakdowns in mass arrest procedures, and they presented risks to the safety of the people who were arrested. That CPD's operational response to the protests and the gaps in relevant policies and procedures crippled the accountability process for the police department, that CPD's senior leadership failed the public that they are charged with serving and protecting, and that public video and reporting captured out of policy, dangerous and disrespectful actions by the Chicago Police Department. Given what we know about CPD operations, and particularly given what we know about how CPD responds to people taking to the streets to protest in support of Black and Brown lives, we cannot give any legitimacy to the arrests CPD makes in the wake of these protests. The charges must immediately be dropped that are still pending against anybody who was in the streets last Friday. And CPD must immediately cease the practice of arresting and using violent force against protesters in an effort to quell people's rights to First Amendment expression. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really quick, we have participants unable to unmute or start their video right now, but we'll have that restriction going again in a minute. So next, we'll have Jackie Serrato speaking.
Hello, good morning. My name is Jackie Serrato. My day job is as a journalist with Southside Weekly, but today I'm here as a person who was born and raised in Little Village and who is intimately familiar with the environment in which Adam Toledo was shot and killed by police. Over the last several days, the community has gathered to grieve, to process, to make sense of the facts as they've been slowly made public by the city. And throughout this time, we have felt a wave of support from communities across Chicago, from the north side to the south side. All of these vigils and marches have been intentionally peaceful, unarmed, cross-cultural, and intergenerational, with clergy, community elders, and children participating. So it makes absolutely no sense for the police to have been deployed in Logan Square to agitate peaceful crowds, and specifically to seek out and target young Black protesters to arrest and retaliate against. Unless, of course, CPD is continuing its racist repression from last summer, in which they actively antagonize and kettle unarmed people who are exercising the right to assembly. That's why I and other members of La Villita community are here to stand with these young people, these young victims of police repression. In fact, we're calling on the entire police department to be held accountable for their abusive practices, from the 10th District Police Station on Ogden, where the child killer is stationed, Eric Stillman, to the 25th District Police Station, which rounded up these young people for no conceivable reason, all the way to the military forces that are attempting to intimidate our Black and Brown communities. These are unprecedented times that call for unprecedented community action. La Villita has said enough. We want justice for Adam Toledo, for all the victims of police violence, and for the youth who are currently facing police retaliation. Drop the charges.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Next, we'll have Jalen and Alicia of Good Kids Mad City.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia Camille from GKMC. It is painfully ironic and a broken record I'm sure all of the people presented on this call are tired of existing in, that when protesting against the state, protesting against the system, rightfully taking to the streets to march for the lives lost through the state-sanctioned violence, were met with an even higher level of harm we were originally advocating against, that actions cultivated to emphasize how the youth are disinvested, not prioritized and isolated, and with us either getting arrested, brutalized, or both. That Lori Lightfoot can confidently go into a press conference room and say that the entire city has failed babies who were executed by the state, as if she's not the one directly putting money into our killers' pockets, as if she's not the one during a global pandemic where Black and Brown people, Black and Brown youth specifically who are in CPS being disproportionately affected, and she gives $285 million set aside for our CARES Act fund to the police who rarely follow COVID protocols themselves. themselves, as if she's not the one. After witnessing the abuse that was perpetrated on Black and brown youth last summer, a few of us on this call right now who were arrested and brutalized by CPD, she's now reopening more trauma wounds by requesting the National Guard to come into Chicago. The state hears the death of Black people, of brown people, of Indigenous people, and react by dressing in riot gear, reacts by allocating more funds to the police, reacts by criminalizing us, criminalizing our families. If you are pro-police, you are automatically anti-Black. If you don't understand the direct correlation between the excessive investment into the police is a direct disinvestment from Black and brown lives in Black and brown communities, you're on the wrong side of history. A system that was designed to do exactly what it's doing today cannot be reformed. It must be abolished. The police need to be disarmed, defunded, and then completely removed from our communities. Black and brown people will not exist safely if they are still in existence. We understand what public safety looks like for us, and it is not being surrounded by those with badges who can get away with trying to cover up the murders of our Black and brown youth. We are working directly with people who are impacted, and no one praises the poor leadership of Lori Lightfoot. No one feels safe with police in their communities. We want funding to come directly to us, funding to come directly to the Black and brown communities that are constantly overlooked and disinvested in. And most importantly, we finally want to stop repeating the same things over and over again and have the media and have our leadership and have our people elected into these city seats finally listen to us for once. Because after a while, we will not continuously do these press conferences, continuously do these actions, continuously do these marches, continuously do these actions when our Black and brown youth are still dying, when our Black and brown youth are still constantly being disinvested in, when our Black and brown youth are now marching and fighting for the lives of kids. I'm now going to pass it off to Jalen to talk about to talk about what actually reinvesting into the police, to Black and brown youth looks like by funding our peace book.
Thank you, Alicia. My name is Jalen. I've been pushing the peace book for 8 months now, but the peace book has existed prior to my pushing it with Miracle, with Good Kids Mad City. The peace book would take $36 million or 2% of CPD's current budget, which is still around $1.8 billion. And it's planning to be more than that for this new $13.1 billion budget that Laura is proposing. We are targeting the areas, right? So we are opening up a West Side chapter that will target Austin, North Lawndale, Humboldt Park, and Garfield Park, right? North Lawndale, where Jaslyn Adams just lost her life 2 days ago. And we just stood out at a vigil yesterday where people continuously asked, where is Lori Lightfoot? Where are the police? Where are all these people who are supposed to be out here, right? And the police are harassing them. Now back to what I was saying. These areas are targeted in our fight for peace as the most disinvested, marginalized, and redlined, despite their habitation of the city's culture, right? As the bigger neighborhoods, they house the majority of the West Side's Black and Indigenous residents while serving them with less schools, less resources for healthcare and mental health, leisurely opportunities, and infrastructural renovation, right? We at the Chicago Peace book, whatever you want to call it, peace book ordinance, believe that our communities have all the raw materials necessary to end gun violence, to prevent the intracommunal violences that occur as trickle effects of Lori Lightfoot's anti-Black state, like Alicia just said. We also believe with conviction that the punitive aspects of the gang database and the Chicago police force and COPE and the carceral and school systems must also be eradicated. That is why we are proposing to erase the gang database in an ordinance with Jeanette Taylor as well, right? So when we have, these organizations prisons, ostensibly forcing our people into helplessness, that must implicate, right, the continuation of violence, meaning when you have somebody to catch you, there's something to be caught for, right? When you have drugs to use, you will use them. When you have guns to shoot, you will shoot them, right? So we are not actually reversing this. So the $36 million would work with families, would work with street organizations, would work with people in the community to incentivize peace work. It is now everybody's fault that Jaslyn Adams lost her life. It is now everybody's fault that Adam Toledo lost his life. That's fine. But when we are asking for funds, we don't all have $36 million. We don't all have $285 million, $1.8 billion that is being given to the police. So what we are needing to do now is incentivize the peace work on every corner to open, like Miracle said, community centers, to open grocery stores, to open places and hubs where Black youth can go to people for directories, to go to people for mental health help, to go to school and feel safe, to be able to walk to school in the same avenue, in the same fashion that white kids can walk to Lakeview, in the same avenue in the same fashion that white kids can walk to Lane Tech. So we are doing this on the south and west sides. We've been doing this in Bronzeville at 51st and Calumet for the past 30 Thursdays or something, right? Handing out food. And we have collected that people do not want more police. People want safety. People want rest assured sleep. People want to trust each other. And it is on us to now call on our older people and call on our city officials to get this $36 million to start the template for working with families, working with survivors to completely prevent gun violence. This is a statistic that will always be uttered out of my mouth as long as it exists. If 24 less people were shot in Chicago, we could fund the Peace Book. If 24 people, so in one weekend and sometimes one day, we can fund our Peace Book. There is no excuse for why we do not have this $36 million. I'm gonna pass it on.
Thank you so much, Jalen. Next, we are hearing from Jasmine Salas.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jasmine Salas. I am one of the co-chairs of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I am here representing the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Coalition. The Chicago Police Department's history of police impunity continues under Lori Lightfoot's leadership. She claimed that she wanted to pass police reform in the first 100 days, but she didn't. Instead, she has enabled police crimes, defended the police, and violated the rights of Black and Brown Chicagoans by raising the bridges downtown during protests and allowing her Chicago police to attack folks in the streets. What happened after Friday's peaceful protest demanding justice for Adam Toledo is a clear example of her failed leadership. Calling in the National Guard in response to the Derek Chauvin verdict is another example of her failed leadership. Communities in Chicago don't want to be occupied by a military force, and yet Black and Brown communities are criminalized by this mayor. It is time for communities to take charge of our own safety. The police and the mayor clearly have no intention of doing so. The shooting of Adam Toledo shows once again that it does not matter if you're a child or if you comply. If you are Black or brown in the city, you are not safe from police. They will hunt you down in alleyways and kill you. We need empowering communities for public safety now to stop these attacks. We need ECPS to stop our mayor and the CPD from justifying these murders as the price to pay to keep us safe. Murdering Adam Toledo and other children will not keep us safe. Incarcerating, criminalizing, and shooting our way out of decades of disinvestment does not keep us safe. A police department that swallows over 40% of our city's operating budget to the exclusion of non-policing and community strengthening alternatives does not keep us safe. Communities need to be able to determine if, when, and how the police play a part in achieving what they say safety is. And we need the power to discipline those officers who refuse to uphold our demands. ECPS will give us that power. We say, Mayor Lightfoot, step out of the way of democratizing our police accountability system. Stop blocking justice and community control. We need ECPS now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Next, we'll have Emma Tai.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just want to start by saying that I don't know what it's like to raise a Black or Latinx child in this city, but I do know what it's like to be a mother, and my heart is just breaking for the families of these babies who we have lost, who we continue to lose because there's no political will to invest in having them have long lives and bright futures. And I feel like we are here asking ourselves again, why is there always political will for the National Guard? Why is there always political will for spending COVID relief dollars on the police? And why is there never political will for jobs, for schools, for parks, for housing? I want to echo the demands that we've heard today to drop the charges, and to not only to drop the charges against these protesters, one of whom I would like to remind everyone is the son of the executive director of Black Lives Matter Chicago, in the sense that this was a political arrest, that this was designed as an arrest that was designed to intimidate and to threaten and to weaken our movement. So we want to drop the charges. We echo the call to not send the National Guard in, to invest resources instead in jobs and schools and housing and parks. And that there is a real way that City Council can and should step up to act in this moment. There is a resolution that will be introduced tomorrow about spending the Rescue Act funds. This is almost $2 billion that is coming directly to the city of Chicago, that is spending that directly on the communities most impacted by both the COVID pandemic and police violence. That money should not go to police, it should not go to banks, it should not go to Wall Street, it should go directly to the people who are suffering in this moment. We also have, as Jasmine said, the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Ordinance, which has been stalled by the Lightfoot administration. We need Alderman Taliaferro to convene the Public Safety Committee so that this ordinance can be moved. We have, as Jalen and Alicia mentioned, the Peace Book Ordinance and the work to abolish the gang database, which would show the young people of Chicago that their lives matter in this city. And then last year, we did a tremendous amount of work around the Treatment Not Trauma Ordinance to send non-law enforcement response to mental health crises, to stop sending to police, armed police officers when people are in crisis, and instead to send social workers who are trained in supporting people and in de-escalating the situation. These are all legislative solutions that are immediately available to City Council. It is not enough to say that your hands are tied. We need political leadership, we need action, and we need the elected officials who represent the city of Chicago to stand with the frontline Black and Brown organizers who are calling for justice in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'll go ahead and close it out for us. Then next we'll have questions from the press. If the mayor is ready to fix our city and save the lives of our Black and Brown children, then it's time for her to pass our Peace Book Ordinance. This plan would include funds for positive youth spaces, political and art education, mental health treatment, restorative justice, and conflict resolution services. And all of this will only cost 2%, $35 million of the hundreds of millions of dollars in the bloated police budget. Other cities have invested far more into their communities from bloated police budgets. It's the only way we'll get justice for Adam Toledo and for Jasmine Adams. Any questions from the press? Now we will be opening up the floor for the press to ask us any questions. If need be, the floor is open for any questions.
Hi there, I'm Jim Daly from the Southside Weekly. I'm here as a reporter. And I was wondering if Sheila or anyone else could talk about what transpired at the police station the evening of the arrests. We saw reports that a number of officers were there. There were photos, but we don't really know exactly what occurred. Can any of you talk about that?
I myself was not at any police departments seeing what was taking place.
Alicia or Jalen, do you want to answer or would you like me to?
I'll go real quick because I don't think nobody know this, but when I was coming back out from the police department from jail support where they were actively antagonizing, Sheila, after we were demanding the release of our people who were unjustly being held, I came back to the police station and dropped my phone. And when I picked it back up, 3 police cars surrounded me and stuck me up and patted me down. And this is while I'm at jail support. So, just a whole night of high tension and having to, Sheila will go into this, but having to, check in with our rights because they were being violated in the spaces. And also people were not wearing masks in that space. People were not answering the phone calls. People had no idea what was going on, were completely oblivious, do not know how to do their job. We're telling people that people are calling, we're telling people all these other things. So yeah, I'll let Sheila get into it.
So after we had been there for hours, there was chanting, there was political education. It was entirely peaceful. Everyone except the lawyers were standing behind the roped off area. I looked up, I was sitting down on the floor with everybody else. And I looked up and saw about 14 people, 14 officers, including white shirts, many of whom had on their black gloves, which they wear when they are ready to do violence. And they were preparing to storm the lobby. And I assume arrest the mothers, the young people, the protesters, the leaders who were in that lobby advocating for the release of the protesters who had been wrongfully arrested. And they argued and tried to assert their right to go into that lobby and do violence. And the important thing there's so many things that can be taken from that incident. One of them is that they never gave us any order to disperse. They never suggested that what was happening with the chanting and the political expression in the lobby was adversely affecting their operations in any way. Their default reaction was to go into the lobby and to attempt to harm all of us who were there. We were able to de-escalate, and quite literally de-escalate. My 8-year-old son watched the video of me trying to talk to the officers, and he said, "You talk to the officers the same way you talk to me when I asked for gummy candy after I brushed my teeth." It was like quite literally having to de-escalate people who had been called out repeatedly by the folks who were in the lobby, who had guns, tasers, OC spray, and were ready to do harm. So I think it's a real indication of the ways in which violence is CPD's default.
And also too, just to chime in, kind of to just touch on what Jalen brought up too, and also what Sheila just brought up, how the claim was that we were disrupting their order of operations. And one, to just say again, we didn't hear any phone ring. We think about order of operations and what the police are actually doing in these police stations. And it was just police officers just sitting and talking, no mask on, just like they're on break, like there aren't missing Black children right now, like there aren't cases to be solved right now. And to say that we were in a lobby with coffee, sitting with blankets on the floor, and that this is us disrupting their order of operations when we're not even seeing what these operations are, is again a testament to say the police literally do not do nothing. They don't solve anything. They can't even talk to people who are trying to wait for people who are arrested without any disrespect. So we're always met with violence, even in our most calm states. It's always, well, y'all are not doing this, y'all are not doing this. And again, to really emphasize the point that while in this police station lobby, we are actively not seeing people even call this station. So what order of operations is happening if you are not even getting calls in the first place? We are actively seeing police officers walking around like it's cafeteria and they're on lunch break. So this is again to say that a testament that the police literally in their own working environment do not do a single thing.
We're still waiting for questions. If anyone else wants to ask questions.
I see Univision is present. Is there someone that can give a statement in Spanish? They're not asking for it, but I'm just wondering.
Maybe before we do that, Olga, I saw a hand up from Kofi. Was there something that you wanted to add?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to ask the panelists, and anyone feel free to kind of answer this. We've seen a lot of conversation, especially in the media, saying the word reform, reform, reform over and over again. I just wanted the panelists, anyone can talk about why it's important that it hasn't been the demand from folks on the ground, from communities of color, or from organizers, that the main messaging has been to defund the police, abolish the police, and kind of speak to why recapturing that narrative is important, because I think folks are being silenced.
I'll respond briefly. I don't think there has been another police department where there has been more reform attempted in the Chicago Police Department for over 100 years. There have been efforts to try to change policy, to change accountability infrastructure, and the police department continually kills Black and brown people with impunity. And so the best evidence we have that reform is not possible, is in many ways a fool's errand, is the history of the Chicago Police Department.
I also too would just chime in to say, and this is kind of a fact that I recently just saw another fellow Chicago organizer post on Twitter, just stating, this is also something that, in case people didn't know, just reiterating this fact again, that Chicago has more police per capita than New York, Houston, and Los Angeles. So just thinking about realistically, if policing is what is supposed to keep people safe, is police is what's supposed to keep people to feel protected, Chicago would be the safest place, realistically, because we have the most police per capita. So even understanding that we have the most police officers and we end up, again, kind of being one of the most violent cities when we think about these bigger cities. So understanding that if police are supposed to work and we have the most police in our city, but we're constantly seeing the opposite, it should be a sign that it's obviously not working. And we're thinking about all this funding that every single day, the police are getting $4 to $5 million. The police have a $1.8 billion annual budget. And we're still seeing the same things happen over and over and over and over and over again. And the $4 to $5 million and the $1.8 billion don't even count the money that's the extra, the this here, the this there, the oh, this pocket change, the oh, you get $285 million on this day. So that's not even counting how much money in total the police department, that specific police officers are getting, and we're still seeing the same things happen over and over and over and over and over again. Within these past 5 weeks, the amount of police shootings that have happened, the amount of shootings that have happened in general. So we're quite literally seeing, even last summer, seeing the very violent summer that happened too. So we're seeing so many examples of police not working. So that's why it's very important to push the message of abolition, to push the message of defunding that then leads into the complete abolition of these systems, because we are seeing that after so long, and again, the system was designed to do exactly what it's doing today. So like I said earlier in what I said, if you are pro-police, you are automatically anti-Black, because if you are for a system that is inherently meant to harm and kill Black people, then that means you are anti-Black. So definitely important to push the message of abolition, of disarming, defunding, and then completely getting rid of this system, because we are proven time and time again that it's doing nothing but killing us.
Also, I'd like to add, how many times have the police reformed their laws and how that they can chase someone on foot? And we see times after time that their calls do not work. Their judgment calls do not work. And Black and brown communities do not trust police. And they wonder why they cannot solve murders. No one feels safe telling you guys information. No one feels safe telling you guys what happens on our block, because y'all gonna come down and be causing terrorism and everything of that nature. And me being a victim of police violence myself is like, I remember when I was young, I wanted to be a police. And then I started growing up and learning about all the corrupted things that they have done, and learning about the laws that were created to segregate the west side and the north side. Like, everything is just discombobulated. CPD does not solve any murder. They don't solve crimes. They are putting guns onto our streets and getting it back into the hands of people who go to jail and end up in this place where it's not teaching them anything. They're letting them get back out and they're still doing the same thing. They're not helping them. It's not anything that's restorative. Jail is not a place where you go and, oh, I'm going to get out and be good. No, they're wasting our coins. They're wasting our taxpayer dollars, creating this system where we keep going in and out of, and there's no outcome for it. There's no change. People going to prison, they don't come out any better. So like I said, their system is punitive for Black and brown youth. Prisoner pipeline, school to prison pipeline, everything is just the same. And police needs to be defunded and abolished, period.
Miracle, sorry, I'm gonna jump in. We got any questions from media? So Christopher Ty, can we take media questions? Then we'll have someone who's gonna translate in Spanish, and then we're gonna try to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much. A question just to see if Alicia or someone with video feed up so that we can include in our report to give a full balance. The mayor's press conference just wrapped up where she said that the National Guard is here, they're on standby, they're not activated. And I apologize for my tardiness. Could someone just kind of crystallize for us the chief concerns of that statement from the mayor's office about standby versus activated and being at the ready? Just if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, for sure. That is an absolute farce. That's absolute bullshit. The National Guard being here automatically, their presence in implicates Black death. They are here to catch slaves. That's their job, right? That's what they're based in. So having the National Guard, the same thing with having police at the protests with riot gear. There's no riot here. Why is there riot gear? The same idea, right? Why would you have somebody to come stand by and not be activated when we know that ICE is in this city in the same capacity that the National Guard is, and they're snatching people up in the same bands that the National Guard is in the same uniform? When we know that Haitian people, Mexican people, all types of people are being deported and thrown in jail and thrown into internment camps, right? So the National Guard is activated, right? They are activated. They're actively looking for Black and brown people to take and usurp. So definitely understanding there's no such thing as standby. With Lori Lightfoot, there's no such thing as standby with terrorists such as Lori Lightfoot, such as the Chicago Police Department.
And also too, just to add on, I think it's important to call out the quickness of Lori Lightfoot and her team to do something after the fact. The quickness to, okay, oh, well, this happened, so now let's send National Guard in. Okay, this happened, so now let's send 100,000 police officers to this protest. Instead of, in order to prevent whatever they don't want to happen, let's be quick enough to send money to reopen these schools. Let's be quick enough to reopen these mental health clinics that Lori Lightfoot promised she said that she would reopen. So we see these quickness to do, oh, let's send in state troops, let's send in National Guard, let's employ all these police officers with riot gear on to do after the fact, but let's not do our job in the first place and make sure that citizens feel safe. It's always we're gonna do this to make sure that we're protecting money. They're protecting money, they're protecting capital, they're protecting buildings that are being insured, but there is no quickness to make sure that they're protecting actual human lives. So that is, again, to just add on to the brilliant point that Jalen just brought up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I think I want to say something. I feel like the National Guard being here, and even though they're not like actively on the streets, that's the same thing as the police would say, oh, this was an armed confrontation. Someone had a gun, but they wasn't pointing at them. Like, come on now, that's the same thing. Stop acting retarded like we don't know this. Like, she put them here because they want us to turn up and act up and want us to get in jail, be caught as slaves. It's that simple. Like, it's not rocket science to work around it.
If I could just moving away from using the R word miracle. We're not trying to use that word for real.
Correct. I apologize, but I just got mad. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Miracle. Thank you so much. We got Paige Fry with a question.
Yes, thank you all for your time. So I was kind of wondering, how are these protests and the police response and the arrest that just recently happened in Logan Square, how did that kind of compare to the protest and arrest of protesters that we saw last summer? Were the police response the same? Were they more aggressive? Has there been any change in that front? And then how do you see protests continuing this summer? What are we expecting to see?
Excellent question, Paige. I'm gonna direct this towards Sheila, if Sheila is still on, and then I'm gonna let one of our wonderful youth follow up if they feel the need.
Sure, thank you. So we learned a lot about CPG's violence and the failures, the sort of systemic policy failures when it comes to responding to protests, given what happened over the summer. Those failures have been well documented by the Inspector General. They have been well documented by many of the young people, the leaders who are on this call. What we found out last week is that the CPD has failed to implement any of the lessons that could be learned. There is a world in which the police stand down during First Amendment expression. There is a world in which young people who are expressing their First Amendment rights are not arrested, are not brutalized, don't end up in the hospital. That is not a world where the Chicago Police Department can exist. And one of the really troubling things about the call to bring in the National Guard is that the CPD is already in chaos when it comes to protester response. Adding in another law enforcement entity with even less clear lines of command that don't understand the city of Chicago is just a recipe for even more chaos. So given the law enforcement response, given the way in which law enforcement intentionally escalates these situations, I think we're all very concerned that we will see a retread of what happened on the streets last summer.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Paige, can you, just to clarify your question is around how does what we saw Friday compare to what we've seen last summer with the police in regards to how they treat protesters?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I can chime in. As someone who was arrested last summer, as someone who is in a group where multiple of our members got arrested and brutalized, and just even witnessing the same tactics and methods, how they handled Friday night with how they handled specifically the action on August 15th where we got arrested, where we see that police are not as active in the middle of the action. They maybe are not marching with us and maybe aren't there before, but then we see at the end when crowds are in smaller groups and when dispersing is actually trying to happen. And then that's when folks start to get kettled in. That's when all these random massive arrests start to happen. That's when all this brutal force starts to put on protesters. So I think that Friday is a perfect example of what it could look like, what in regards to what happened last summer, just as the quickness to harm, the quickness to arrest, the quickness to abuse, and the same methods that they are using to wait for groups to be smaller, to then go and attack smaller groups of people who were, mind you, we had a crowd of maybe 4,000, 5,000 people. And then you look at all the arrests happening when there's maybe 100 people left outside trying to leave. And so what can a crowd of 5,000 do against to make sure people aren't being arrested, to make sure that there's enough marshals to help that people don't get taken and snatched up and go missing by the police, to make sure that there are people who aren't getting brutalized by the police if you have 5,000 people. But if the police are doing the same method of waiting for smaller crowds and waiting for groups to be dispersed and waiting for groups to be separated, and they're coming through different alleys, and they're coming in these undercover cars, they're coming in these undercover uniforms to come in and take youth away. And specifically, again, I want to say target Black and brown youth. We've been seeing last summer, all the actions of people who got arrested, it were Black and brown youth. With our few white allies who came in to make sure that Black and brown people weren't being brutalized hard enough, but we look at who's being arrested. Like somebody just said, Black Lives Matter director, that her son got arrested. That's in a direct political arrest that's happening to try to scare and threaten the movement. So we're seeing, again, the same thing of these same tactics. You know how scary it is to be in a group of 50 people and it's 100 police officers surrounding you in a crowd, blocking you off, and you can't leave. So these same tactics are going over and over again. And I think it's just safe to say that the city is planning for another summer last year, but instead they're dressed in 10 times more riot gear. So I definitely see similar characteristics of last summer trying to transcend into this summer as well.
And yeah, just to finish off on that, like the same tactics, like Alicia said, last summer we're protesting, right? Not just necessarily the use of, you know, the knee on George Floyd, but I have a video of me, my face being put on the ground and a knee being on my neck by 7 to 8 police officers for 2 minutes at a protest last year, August 15th. So they're doing the same things while we're protesting what they protest. You get what I'm saying? Like they're actively antagonizing us with the same things that we are protesting against. So we protest chokeholds, we protest knees on the neck, we protest riot gear. They come out in more of that. They come out with 3 times that. They come out with new cars. They call in different police departments. They call in National Guard. They call in ICE. They call in federal agents. They call the KKK. They call the Italian Mafia. They call the mob. They call everybody. That's how that works. That's how they snatch us up. So last year, we're not going to have a repeat of last year because we move much smarter than them because they move on the same things that they do. But you know, updating our model of organizing, you know, has to rely on the fact that we know last year and from this year and what they're already engaging in, right, with Adam and with everybody who's passed away this year, right, understanding that there is no bound that is too far, right? There is no bound, and they're going to do whatever they can to silence, to kill, to whatever.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jalen and Alicia. That was powerful. I think the last question we have from media is Jose Manuel Almanza Jr. Jose.
Thank you so much. I'm now with the media. Soy organizador con Únete la Villita y nomás tengo un comentario aquí para los redes de noticieros aquí. Les queremos decir que no queremos reformar. Ya el tiempo de platicar con la policía, el tiempo de negociar con el alcalde, ya eso ya tuvo su tiempo y ya estamos viendo lo que no sirvió. Entonces estamos aquí demandando a abolir la policía, a quitarle los fondos y regresar esos fondos aquí a la comunidad como Little Village, como Englewood, como Auburn Gresham, todas las comunidades de color que no han visto y no han recibido fondos que necesitamos para que nosotros nos mantengamos pues saludable y con buenos trabajos y con familia. Y otra cosa, ¿dónde está nuestro concejal Cárdenas? No lo veo, nomás veo aquí al concejal Byron Sixto López que representa a Pilsen. Pero ¿dónde está nuestro concejal? Él tuvo un press conference con nuestro alcalde Mayor Lightfoot en la iglesia New Life y le echó la culpa a los maestres de Adam, le echó la culpa a la familia de Adam, le echó la culpa a la gente de la comunidad, en vez de echarle la culpa a la persona que disparó, a la persona que correteó a Adam, a la persona que le tuvo miedo a un niño de 13 años. Vendido. No los vamos a olvidar. Nuestros papás y nuestras mamás llegaron a este país y tenían miedo de levantar su voz, tenían miedo de decirles no a la policía o a nuestros elegidos, pero nosotros no. Nosotros estudiamos, nosotros leemos, nosotros andamos organizados. Ya vieron cuánta gente llegaron a vernos el viernes. Más de 5,000 personas están listos para abolir la policía, no para reformar. Quiero que sepan todos que andamos demandando abolir, no reformar. Ya ese tiempo ya acabó. Y Cárdenas, no nos vamos a olvidar. 2023, ahí nos vemos. Ya no más. Gracias.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jose. Are there any more questions from the media? If not, I think we're going to try and wrap up. Okay, If not, Miracle, is there any last words you want to say and then wrap us up?
Sorry, I believe I already said my last words, but basically I'll be repeating them again. Pass our peace book ordinance. It's only cost 2%, 35 million of CPD's budget. And if the mayor's ready to fix our city and solve our problem and act well, play like she pretends about Black and brown children, then it's time for her to pass our peace book ordinance and defund and abolish police. Justice for Adam Toledo, justice for Jocelyn Adams.
Thank you so much, Miracle. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.